men to discuss this further. We're joined by telecom sector veteran Sanjay Kapoor, also the former CEO of Bharti Airtel, and the head of the industry body COI DG Rajan Matthew. Rajan, appreciate you joining us, and Sanjay, thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. Rajan, let me start by asking you, we understand that these are going to be the decisions of the IMG. Of course, this is not official information, this is source-based information, but if indeed the government were to accept the telecom companies' demands to extend the payment period from 8 to 16 years, to cut the interest payment from PLR to MCLR, and also to allow spectrum being used as collateral, how significant a positive would that be for the sector?
Sharon, thank you. I think clearly these would be very positive for the industry, and it would help cash flow. We have not been informed definitively, so we haven't done any particular calculations as to what the total impact would be. But clearly, this is going to be very, very beneficial to the industry. It is one of three legs on the financial stool, if I might. So I don't want to sound negative. I'm very positive about this move. The two legs of the stool that are still to be addressed and seem to be rejected was, of course, the SUC charge and the license fee charge, which were recommended by the TRI. So I'm hoping that in course of time, which is shorter rather than longer, the government will make a positive call on those as well.
So on the SUC, at least as far as source-based information goes, we understand that that proposal or that recommendation has in fact been rejected. I'm not sure about the license fee, but on the SUC, Rajan, do you still have any hope that you are going to see any breakthrough?
I hope so, because in a rational basis, after you've paid for the spectrum up front, there seems to be no particular rationale for continuing to extract money on spectrum usage. The only reason appears to be the government's need for revenue, and that, I believe, should really take a back seat to trying to get the industry back on its feet.
Broadly, I know you said you haven't been able to do the calculation because we don't know what the final decision is going to be. But if, in fact, they were to extend the payment period from 8 to 16 years, if, in fact, they move to MCLR, which takes your interest payment from 12 to 8%, broadly, what would it mean in terms of cash flow?
So again, if I can just give you the broad outlines, first of all, I think there is about 30,000 to 35,000 crore rupees that is owed to the government by various operators relative to the debt taken on for spectrum. Now, if you see the reduction in interest, it's about a 4% plus reduction in the interest. So what really happens is that the payment gets pushed out, but the interest increases, obviously, right? So although there is a 4% reduction in the net, there's almost not much of a difference. I think the big difference is, of course, in the cash flow and alleviating the cash flow demands immediately. I think that's the biggest benefit that comes right now to the industry.
And which is what the industry has been seeking as well. But Sanjay Kapoor, on the back of what you've heard so far, what kind of impact do you foresee for the telecom sector if indeed this is the final call that's taken by the government?
So, Shireen, I tend to agree with Rajan on a number of points here. I think as far as the interest rate reduction is concerned, while per year benefit will be there, but because the loan has to be paid over a longer period in time, the total interest burden in absolute rupees will tend to go up. But I think looking at the plight of the industry today, which has a very poor net debt to EBITDA ratios and are overly leveraged, I think at this stage for the industry to raise cash to reinvest and be competitive is probably the most compelling ask for the industry. And I think that comes true with staggering of these payments. And if the industry gets back about $12 billion to pump back in improving their networks, in moving to 4G, in building a solid backhaul, I think that's probably the need of the hour. And I think this will render at least some of the struggling players a little more competitive versus the onslaught of a new entrant in the market. So I think it's a good news overall. I think it gives the sort of respite that they're looking for. I also agree with Rajan that if you look at any part of the world, when the spectrum is auctioned and you have market-discovered pricing for spectrum, then the room for SUC really goes away, because all you need to then recover is an administrative cost behind that spectrum to manage that spectrum, and that cannot be 5%. So I think this is probably not a cost that has any rationale, but I guess, you know, government has certain amount of revenues coming out of here, and they don't want to let go given the current situation. But otherwise, you know, looking at the market-discovered prices, I think it is not truly justified.
Okay. A quick word from the two of you, because the Vodafone Idea merger has got the approval of the competition regulator. So it's one hurdle cleared now for that mega $25 billion deal. Sanjay, a quick word from you on that.
Yes, absolutely. I think, you know, the first hurdle is clear. And the sooner the two operators are able to put behind this merger and move ahead competing in the market, the better it will be for them. Because no matter you have 2 teams or 3 teams or 5 teams, the energies get sucked into putting a merger together of this size. And this is by far the largest merger happening in the country. And, you know, I'm happy this has happened, but I hope this is behind them sooner than later so they can be competitive in the marketplace. I think the good news out of this is that a new number 1 player is emerging as far as these two players are concerned. And they're upstaging the existing number 1 player in the market who's been there for more than a decade and a half at the numero 1 position. So I think it's good news for them, but I think the whole game is still not over. This merger will take a lot of sweat, a lot of man hours to put it together, and let's see if they can derive the synergies for which they've put this together.
Rajan, a quick word from you on the proposed clearance that has come in now from the CCI for the Idea Vodafone merger. Of course, we're still awaiting the DOT clearance as well as the clearance from the market regulator.
But Shireen, this is really big, both for you know, Vodafone as well as for Idea and the industry, especially coming from the CCI, where there was a case filed on cartelization, where those two were included. So to get a carte blanche from the CCI is truly big.
And Rajan, before I let you go, I understand that you know, companies like Bharti and Idea have responded to the CAG on the notice that was issued, or actually the report that the CAG had issued. Very quickly, you want to respond on that?
So clearly, Shireen, what is happening is that the CAG is looking at these, you know, filings, but ignoring the differences that were there when the TDSAT and TRI had given different interpretations of the AGR. So obviously the companies would have been computing their dues under the extant definition given either by TRI or TDSAT. To come in after the fact and then say that it's different, I think is really missing the mark.
All right, Rajan Matthews, Sanjay Kapoor, we'll have to leave it there on those two important stories. One, the proposed recommendations of the IMG, which could provide some relief for the telecom sector. And two, the big one, the Competition Commission of India clearing the Idea Vodafone merger, no conditions attached.